Good people YouTube, I'm the Watch Idiot, and I am so excited about this watch because this has been one of the biggest surprises of 2021 for me, and it is the San Martin SN021-G, the the Exploring Climbing series, and it's the homage to the Explorer 1016, but it's a modern take on the classic 1016, and technically this watch as it is doesn't exist anywhere, and Rolex doesn't make a watch like this San Martin currently, even though they really ought to. Also, if you hear me referring to watches in a weird way, it's just because I don't want any sort of bizarre random copyright thing that really isn't copyright thing to take me down for any different way, because these watches are actually just completely different, so all things considered. So yeah, we're gonna get into the details about this watch and why I think this is a very well done homage and why it's so surprisingly awesome. So just a heads up, AliExpress reached out to me and asked me if I would like to collaborate with them, and they gave me a link with a bunch of watches from all different kinds of brands and asked me to choose one, and I chose this particular watch to be sent to me because it's the one I was actually interested in, and I don't have to send it back. And also there are links to the watch and a promo code for you guys specifically that is for $10 off anything over $220, which is valid now until November 30th, and that's in the description. Also, it's AliExpress's Singles Day or their Double 11 sale this Thursday and Friday on the 11th and 12th, so check them out because there might even be more discounts. So I'm gonna go over the unboxing experience now because this is the new updated box from San Martin, and it's seriously cool for $290. And yeah, while that's happening, I wanna talk about what exactly it was about the watch and the brand that intrigued me so much. So I've been hearing about San Martin for quite some time, you know, starting from Jody from Just One More Watch, you know, hence why I'm calling it San Martin instead of San Martin. But I have been impressed by the quality they've been putting out. But honestly, I never really felt that strongly about any of their watches beyond that. Obviously, because quite a few of their watches are the Control-C, Control-V kind of homage watches. But then I saw the last version of this watch and it was pretty cool, but it wasn't quite perfect because it was 39 millimeters, which is okay, but I wasn't particularly enthused by the intense Fotina lume, the cursive logo, and the domed crystal wasn't ideal. But then this version came out and it solved every problem because it looks like a completely modern watch, and basically this is the watch that should but doesn't exist in Rolex's catalog. And if I were to redesign the original watch today, it would look exactly like this. And on top of that, I've always loved this sort of simple time-only watch. You know, I used to own and love the Hamilton Kaki Field Mechanical and the Zinn 556, but it's always been overshadowed to a certain extent by my love for divers. But I do think that the SN021 will endure, especially because of the overall feel and the bracelet. So yeah, I didn't want to pass judgment on San Martin without experiencing their watches, and I'm glad that it was this watch that introduced me to the brand because it's awesome. So let's get into the dimensions, and the dimensions are small, all things considered, just because it has a case width of technically 37 millimeters, but the bezel is all you see, which is 36 millimeters. So yeah, that might worry people who might think it's a little bit too small, but it wears larger than that because the lug to lug is 45 millimeters, which is still, you know, quite small, but in terms of proportions, it's quite a bit bigger than the 36 millimeter size. And on top of that, the case and lugs have a very strong presence when you look down at it, which once again makes the watch wear a little bit larger, aka, you know, it's not a dainty 36 millimeter dress watch. Also, another big part of the overall feel is the 11.3 millimeter thickness, which isn't thick by any means, but once again, proportionally, it gives the watch a sportier, more robust feel, I guess. So to me, on my 7.5-inch wrist, it wears and looks more like a small 38 millimeter watch. So yeah, I mean, all that being said, I think a huge part of the experience of this watch is the smaller size. The 36 millimeter size is perfect for the vintage 369 dial, just because when I think of this particular style of 369, I think of the 36 millimeter 1016, which is why I want to get the same-ish vibe from this watch too. So 39 millimeters would be great too, and the San Martin has a 39 millimeter version that's a little bit different, but it wouldn't give the watch the same effect. So actually, if I had the choice between this 36 millimeter version and the exact same thing in 39 millimeters, I would actually still choose the 36 millimeter version. Like I said, I could tell that this watch was gonna be good when watching the videos about it, but I didn't realize like just how ridiculously good it would be in real life. So the bracelet is amazing. The finishing is top notch with the brushing on the top and the polishing on the sides. The links are screwed links, which makes it, adjustment super easy. Also, the flow and the movement of the links on the bracelet, it's smooth, which is something that can often separate cheaply made bracelets from the well-made ones. The end link is of course solid and it blends in very well with the case, and it has zero play. And also this new version has female end links, which will be great for smaller wrists. But the part that surprised me the most was the clasp, actually, because this is usually the part where most brands at this price point cut costs. But San Martin has made a brand new clasp, and it's seriously one of the best that I've experienced. And yeah, it's super solid yet not clunky and giant, and it's got 4 micro adjustment holes, which is awesome. It has a push button deployment, which is super easy to open, and when it closes, it feels extremely secure. So actually, let's listen to it right now. Listen to that. Yeah, this is my favorite kind of clasp because I don't have to worry about, short nails or having the entire watch snap up, when opening other pressure fit clasps. And the finishing of the clasp is so good because the bevel that runs along the top looks so sharp, against the really wonderfully brushed surfaces, and the applied logo on the clasp is once again next level, just because the logo is done in relief and the insides are sandblasted and the logo itself is polished. Yeah, I mean, that detail is awesome. And yeah, I still can't believe that this watch is $290. Yeah. So onto the case, and just like the bracelet, it's extremely well finished. The mid case is polished weirdly well, and the brushed top is just as good, and it matches the finish of the bracelet, which is something that I'm very particular about, if anyone's seen my Black Bay 58 videos. And also the crown is quite special because it is a signed crown, as one would hope, but it has a miniature version of the really nice, intricate, sandblasted, polished logo from the clasp. And the crystal is a flat sapphire crystal, which is exactly what I would have chosen for this particular watch. So this is where the watch's character really comes in, because this is based on the older 1016, which is a dial that I absolutely love. And I like the modern applied 369 on the latest models as well. But to me, they look a little bit too sporty, I guess. So if I were to design the next generation for Rolex, it would literally look like this San Martin. So given that it's a homage to a vintage watch that no longer exists in that form, I was expecting that it would have, quite a bit of patina on the dial, which would have been, less than ideal, but, lo and behold, it's white and crisp, and I'm so thankful for that because it really makes me feel like the watch is what a modern day 1016 would be had the original 369 design stuck around. And the crisp white indices are printed onto a matte black dial, which makes the dial look quite simple overall. And I saw some people complaining that the dial is a bit too simple and that they would have wanted applied indices, and honestly, I completely disagree with that. I love the original 1016, and I've always wanted a cheaper modern version of it. So I think that the simple printed white indices on the matte black dial fits that vibe perfectly, because it makes the watch feel a bit more like the tool watch that it was, and while the rest of the watch is a bit more elevated in that sense. But in terms of elevation of the watch, the applied logo is awesome because it's the same, once again, the same sandblasted polished relief logo found on the crown and on the clasp, and to this day I'm surprised at how well finished these are. But also, just as a heads up, if this particular applied logo is not to your liking, San Martin also offers 4 other logo options. It's a printed version of this hexagonal logo, a printed cursive San Martin, a standard font San Martin, and also a completely sterile dial version. So next up are the hands, and let's be honest, you know, they look exactly like what we would expect for this kind of watch, but you know, usually that would bother me because I'm not really a fan of Control CV Homage watches, but in this case, since the SN021 isn't really a completely Control CV watch, the handset does add to the modern 1016 look and feel. And as for the lume, I think that it's well done just because, you know, as far as I can tell, it's BGW9, which means that it glows blue, and yeah, blue lume is always gonna get extra points from me just because I think it looks awesome. And the lume is evenly applied, it's not splotchy at all, it's pretty bright all things considered, but is it the brightest lume out there? No, not really, but I mean, this isn't a dive watch, so I am okay with it the way that it is. So this is an interesting section just because this particular version that I chose uses the PT 5000 movement instead of the other option, which is $100 extra, which is the Sellita SW200 movement. And yeah, I chose this particular movement just because I've never had it before, so I wanted to see what it's like, just so, you know, everyone else can also see what it's like. So it's an ETA 2824 clone, just the same way that the Sellita SW200 is a clone of that ETA 2824. However, this is made by a Chinese company, HK Precision Technology. So yeah, I mean, given that it's a clone, the specs are pretty much exactly the same, other than having, you know, one less jewel, but it's got the smooth 4 Hz sweep, which is 28,800 beats per hour, 38-hour power reserve, hacking, hand winding, quick set date, all the good stuff. And yeah, I mean, I was a bit apprehensive about this movement because, you know, in this price range, I'm used to the classic, you know, Seiko NH35 movement or the any of the Miyotas. You know, they're awesome, they're trusted, they're, you know, relatively reliable, they're pretty reliable. You know, this one, on the other hand, is pretty new and not too much is known, I guess. But I must say that while I've had it, it's been an absolute trooper, you know, and the accuracy on my particular example, can't guarantee for everyone, but on my one is kind of ridiculous just because on average, it's been gaining only 1 second a day, which is just insane. That is just next level, and it adds to the overall feel of quality because if a movement loses or gains a huge amount of time every single day, that can really bring down the experience of even a well-made expensive watch. But once again, if you don't want to give it a go, there is a Sellita SW200 version for it for about $100 more. So the biggest negative that I have is that it had the potential to be an absolute strap monster, but it's let down a bit just because there isn't much space between the spring bar and the case. So as a result, I can't put on my favorite Barton rubber straps without it kind of being, you know, stuck on, potentially damaging the top ends of it. And then, you know, putting on other straps won't work unless they are curved. However, you can put it on NATO straps if you use a curved spring bar, which you can either buy, or if you really want to, you can just do what I did and just like bend a regular set of spring bars and it does the trick perfectly fine. But I do see this only as a slight negative because I'm a bracelet guy, at least right now, and the bracelet is so good that I really don't see myself wanting to switch out straps. But, you know, it is still irritating because it does limit my choices. And then finally, the crown has a ghost date position, but I don't hear a date change click anywhere near 12 o'clock when I pass it, which makes me think that's been taken out and taken care of, and which is good because then you're not going to risk damaging it. So there you have it. I am so glad that I'm experiencing this watch because it's seriously good, and I still can't believe that it's less than $300 because the case and bracelet is just so good, and the finishing is great as well, and the clasp as well for that matter. But yeah, I mean, just go for it. And as far as the overall experience goes, it's awesome getting a fully modern version of a vintage watch that's no longer made, but one that I wish was made. So yeah, go ahead and click the link to this particular watch and use the promo code for $10 off of, you know, any other watch for that matter. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, give a big thumbs up and hit the subscribe button as well, and the notification bell while you're at it too, just so that you can stay completely updated on everything that's happening on the channel. And yeah, until the next video, good day.